This is Sunil Manji, Principal SC for Cloudera. We'll be doing a brief demonstration of how to orchestrate airflow pipelines within Cloudera Data Engineering for CML. Essentially, jobs and pipelines that exist in CML, being able to orchestrate that through Apache Airflow. So this is CDP. Let's dive into the machine learning project that I have here. This is my workspace. And within my workspace, I have a project called Workflow Orchestration. And within Workflow Orchestration, there's a couple of pieces of a couple of assets that are important here. First is my Python files, right? So in this example, I have a couple of them here, and I've turned one of these into a job. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. The other piece is I actually have a JSON dictionary under resources, and this dictionary file is a deterministic for the Airflow branching operator. So what this essentially does, for those that may not be aware of the branching operator looks at some arbitrary logic and says, okay, if then else, basically. And in this scenario, what I have is a dictionary, JSON dictionary that will influence the pipeline in the way in which route it takes. Oftentimes, you'll find that these dictionaries are created as pre-processing logic to determine what the models or the model pipeline should do next, right? Based on many configurations, parameters. So we have the dictionary file, and we will be using this in the DAG. And then obviously we have our jobs. So this particular job here is called compute something. I know it's a silly name, but there's nothing special about it, right? You can create as many jobs as you like within CML based on code, any Python or PySpark or R code. And inside of here, you can see that some of the settings is I selected my Python file, what kernel I want to run with, enabling Spark. The important detail here is that you must select a resource profile that's greater than the base, so 2 CPUs or anything above that is totally fine. And then once I have this job set up, now what I want to do is be able from Airflow to call one of these CML jobs or many of the CML jobs, right? I'm going to orchestrate the pipeline within within Airflow, but these jobs and files exist within CML. So far, so good. So we'll go back to now we'll go to CDE and walk through what this looks like, right? So we'll go back to Cloudera Data Engineering, which essentially you go here and just go to Data Engineering, and I'll select my environment here, which is basically Spark on Kubernetes. And I'm going to first select cluster details, okay? Now, every virtual environment comes with its own Airflow. And the reason why that's important is for us to, and I'll click on this here, for us to be able to, within the Cloudera Data Engineering data service, we want to be able to call jobs that are in CML, which is Cloudera Machine Learning. And how you do this is through the connection tab. And this will be a part of the product very soon. But for now, we have to go in and create a connection. And essentially the connection is called CML REST API. It's incredibly simple. An individual named Curtis Howard, this is his GitHub page, CML Operator. Very simple how to create this. And once you follow the directions here, you'll see the CML REST operator. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because it's simple. It's just a few lines. Once this is there, this connection ID will be used by the CML operator, and you'll see that in a moment in the DAG. So that's the only step you need to do within Airflow is just create the CML REST API using Curtis Howard's GitHub page, follow those directions. And now at this point, I want to go back and I want to take a look at the jobs. All right. So inside of these jobs, I have a couple of Spark job, a Spark job and a couple of Airflow DAGs. This particular Airflow DAG is my ML pipeline DAG. Super simple, and and we'll go into the details of the DAG, but how you create a job, you click on Create Job, you select Airflow, give the DAG, give a name for the job, and give it your DAG file, right? In this scenario, I have ML pipeline DAG, and inside of it, we'll just kind of take a look at what does the DAG do. Look at graph view because it's easier to talk to. And then you can see here that I have, I fetch sources, I do a couple of pieces of logic, and then the branching operator. The branching operator is interesting, and it provided an additional layer of complexity where this branching logic is where we look at that dictionary file. If you remember in the beginning of this recording, I show the JSON dictionary, and that exists in CML. But this Airflow instance and Kubernetes exists within CDE. So what we do within the branching operator, and I'll show you the DAG in a moment, is we go and fetch that file, that JSON dictionary. Whatever's in that JSON dictionary, will create this if-then-else logic, right? So they will say, hey, if the parameter value in the dictionary is certain value, will go here, if then else, basically, right? And I'll show you that in a moment. Pretty simple. Let's go to the DAG. So inside the DAG, and again, all this code is within my GitHub page, which is Sunil Man's CDE Airflow branch operator. And there's a few pieces of a few variables that you'll need to update. So you see the host here, and the host is the CML host. And how you get the CML host is I'll go here, and any one of your workspaces, it's this URL up top, right? So right here, this is what this is, right? All you need to do is grab that up to the site, and that's essentially what this is right here. Username, your CDP username, your API key is the CML API key. And how you retrieve that is you go to user settings, and you go to API keys, and you use the legacy API key. Now, obviously, after this recording, I'm going to rotate my key because this is available in the public forum. But you will use this, copy and paste, and put it right here. The project name is your CML project name. Again, going back to CML, I'm bouncing around a little bit. But you can see here, that's the project where my files and my jobs exist. And then the dictionary file. Now, you don't necessarily need to do this if you're not using a dictionary file, but this is just an example of where you're using CDE to go fetch some file that's going to have an influence in your workflow, right? Your Airflow orchestration. And in this scenario, I have a dictionary file, and it's under the project workflow orchestration, and where it exists is resources and dictionary.json, right? Dictionary.json. So that's pretty simple. That's all you really need to update there. And then I'll show you a little bit about how I use the branching operator. So I call the function called deterministic, which essentially says, hey, go fetch that file from CML. So this just does a get using the API key. And then inside of that file, inside a dictionary, it'll say, hey, does that value exist equal train? And we'll go back to that file for just a second, just to kind of bring this all together. Let me go to dictionary.json. You can see that the value is dataset. And here the value is dataset. It says if it's trained, then do hyperparam tuning, else do test data set tuning. Right? So that's pretty simple. And then again, this branch operator is standard inside of Airflow. The piece that's also new here is the CML operator. So the CML operator, as we created the connection, and if you follow Curtis Howard's GitHub page, all you need to do is specify this CML operator, give it a task ID, whatever you like. This shows up in your Airflow DAG. The project name, I created a variable called project name. If I scroll up top, you can see here it's just workflow orchestration, right? So it's my CML project name. So again, going back here, task ID, project name, CML project name. and then your job name that's within CML. So remember, my job name is compute something. And if I go back into jobs, that's essentially this, right? This is a job name, compute something, and what DAG, right? It's pretty simple, nothing special. And that's it. And if I scroll down, you can see that, in the way that it's orchestrated, I have fetch sources, and then I have a data fork, which is my branching operator. And my branching operator will then decide which path it needs to take based on the variable that's, the dictionary variable or parameter that's inside of that file, right? Pretty simple. Again, all this code is within GitHub. So let's go to CDE and see how this works. So you can see here, nothing's running right now. If I go to CDE into my jobs, and I go to ML pipeline DAG, if you go to configurations, it's pretty simple. If you have to update your DAG file, you simply click edit and give it your new DAG file and run. Here in this scenario, I'm just going to click on, and I'm going to click on actions and run now. And what this will do is it will kick off my ML pipeline DAG. I can click on the run number here, take a look at the configurations that it ran with. So obviously it's running with this particular DAG file. You can look at the logs, and then obviously you can go into the Airflow and take a look at what's going on. So you can see here that right now the first instance was successful, and it's based on it's going and doing fetch sources. So which means it's at this point it's probably kicked off a CML job. I'm gonna go back into jobs here, and you can see it's running, right? Pretty simple. So you can see it started a few seconds ago, and it's running, right? And it'll continue to execute the entire day. One example of this that already, I believe already ran, if I go into this, I can take a look at the previous runs. So I can take a look at this particular run, which is 89. I can take a look at the Airflow UI, and you can tell here that I've run this before. So obviously, the start, you fetch sources, then branching, and that branching decided that, oh, by the way, that variable needs to go to training, for example. So it did, feature engineering and things like that. So you can tell that some of the tasks were skipped because it didn't go down that path. It's variable based. So again, it's highly dynamic. So that should conclude the demonstration. A quick review of what we talked about today. We were able to use a CDE, an Airflow instance within CDE. And what that Airflow instance within CDE is able to orchestrate jobs that exist in CML. And it's able to fetch files that exist in CML in case you need to have a deterministic or use a branching operator within the DAG. The reason why that level of detail is important is because the files, and I'll go here just to bring this together, the files that exist within the machine learning experience are outside of what's available to data engineering, because again, machine learning experience has its own file system, and it's not necessarily, if you haven't stored the file in S3, how do you give access to it? Well, I showed you that through this DAG, and we're able to orchestrate a highly complex pipeline. And it's able to determine if the jobs are successful and go on to the next step. And the DAG and the assets are available. We talked about the new CML operator, and then also all the code that's available in the CDE Airflow branch operator to execute this DAG. Thanks for listening.